Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Jenna Wakely. Mrs. Jenna, how are you doing, ma?
I'm very well. Thank you so much.
And also, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a natural healer and an advanced body talk practitioner. Can you please, Mrs. Jenna, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Jenna?
I can. Thank you so much for having me. I have been doing healing work for massage therapy for 30 years and for my other work, body talk, for almost 20 years now. I absolutely love my work and I love helping people let go of their past stuff so they can be more of who they are. And I've seen some amazing transformations when people are ready to let go. They just do, and it's becoming faster. People are starting to recognize that they have to do their inner work, otherwise they will stay the same course. They will just keep doing the same thing. And so I'm constantly taking courses, learning more because I always feel like there's more to learn. You never stop learning, and so I'm very grateful that there is so many things out there to learn, and I'm constantly working on being a better practitioner and working on my own stuff so that I am an example for all the people I work with.
That is very much important and absolutely true. Because despite the person who is trying to lecture people about their inner work, there are a lot of things that will also come around such person as well. So working on our inner work and also actually teaching people how they can actually help themselves in those perspectives, we show the sense of example. And that is why I would like to drive to your book, How to Have Ease and Joy in a Relationship. Can you please, Mrs. Jenna, discuss more on the book? And do you also plan to write more books in the coming future, Mrs. Jenna?
Yes, I would love to discuss that. My book, um, I honestly never thought that I would write a book because English was never my favorite subject. I'm more of a science and math girl. And but I had an awareness to write this book because people need to know um, where they're stuck. And so this book came to me when I read it myself. I really feel like it was given to me, it through me. And when I read it, I really don't think I wrote it. But I'm very grateful for it to be in the world because I really do believe it's going to help people. And yes, I'm into my next book. I'm writing a parenting book. My next book is called Love and Space, The Journey into Parenting Made Easy. It's a parenting book. So, yes, I am writing more books.
Definitely be expecting that. Sometimes they say this world is a mystery. Sometimes we do tremendous huge thing, and by the time we'll go back, we start to question ourselves, did we actually do it? But I'm so glad that you actually brought out something that is very, very profoundly huge, that are actually impacting people's life out there. And that is why I would also like to drive to your journey, because your own journey included heartbreak, loneliness, and also repeated relationships that were not for you. So, what do you think finally helped you recognize the patterns you have repeating and begin choosing differently, Mrs. Jenna?
And so it's a really great question. And so I really promote in my work self-reflection and looking at yourself. So if you can't see something, you can't change it. And so I started looking, if I've had so many failed relationships, I started looking at myself, going, what am I doing to contribute to these relationships not working? Because all you can do is look at yourself and change yourself. And so I started realizing the patterns, similar people I kept choosing. And I realized that I didn't know how to be with a man. I wasn't taught. And so I was living in this space of, I don't need a man. And that is a very painful thought for a man, is to not be needed. And so I asked the universe, I talked to the universe, God, creator, whatever you want to say. whatever your word is, all the time. And I asked, what do I need to learn? What am I not getting here? And I came across a book called The Queen's Code by Alison Armstrong. And this book helped me change my perspective on men and how they are. And she told me how most women, a lot of women, not most, a lot of women see men as misbehaving women. And how they, we think they think we like we do, and they don't. So it was a really eye awakening book that helped me discover how to be different. And so yeah, that was really when I started looking at it, and I changed my patterns by looking at it differently.
That is absolutely not easy, as a person who has actually been in a position whereby, it's a sense of observation, going through the same process and going back to that process, going back there again. It makes one, question in or ourselves, am I the problem or is it the men? That is why sometimes we hear all men are the same, all those kind of quotes, something like that. But
Right.
getting the perspective of understanding that the way women think is different from the way men think, and other perspective, making them one understand better, shows this transition has also put you to the position whereby things actually came out more beautifully and also more profound as well. So I do
Mhm.
appreciate you for that wonderful insights, Mrs. Jenna. And that is why I would like to drive to the point of difference, because you discovered that what you once called strength was sometimes a fear of vulnerability. So, how can someone tell the difference between a healthy independence and emotional walls that prevent deeper connection, Mrs. Jenna?
I'm really glad that you brought up vulnerability, because that's a hard word for a lot of people to even think about. And actually, my husband, he taught me about vulnerability. When I first met him, he asked me a question before we even met. We were just talking, and he asked me if I was able to be vulnerable. And it scared me because I recognized in that moment that I was not able to be vulnerable. And I asked him why he asked me that question, and he said, if you can't be vulnerable, you can't get deep enough in the connection in order to make it work. And I really thought this was a profound comment statement. I really, it made me change my mindset and realize I had to work on that vulnerability piece. And it's a fear of being hurt, feeling being seen, because if you are who you are and people see you, then they can reject you for that. And so the question you asked me, the difference between healthy independence is when you have your own life and that person you're with has their own life, and you let them be who they are, and you let them um, have their own life and don't try to control everything they do, because we are our own individual, and that's healthy to come together and have our own um, interests. And when you have walls up, emotional walls, you tend to control, um, create drama, push away, just make things harder because you're afraid to be hurt. And we need to work on that vulnerability in order to have good relationships. And that's what I think.
That is very much important. You actually made a very huge two good points, because a healthy relationship, when having two people and they actually understand themselves and they actually know their values and they actually do not want to, control or actually give the sense of dominance in the relationship. And also another connection whereby a person sees the sense of vulnerability, that is fear of one not getting hurt. And that is where we humans that are in this perspective need to work on, because we can try our best to see everything, but we can also try our best to see what we can do to also work on that particular area, because it doesn't help us to actually be more open to some certain things that can actually lead to more things that can actually help us grow as well. And that is why I would also like to drive to the point of your book. We are driving back to your book, which
Mhm.
explores male and female perspective in heterosexual relationships. How do you think understanding different ways of communicating, giving affection, and handling emotions. How do you think it reduces unnecessary conflict between partners, Mrs. Jenna?
Mm, that's a great question. So one thing that doing the work I do and reading lots of books and discovering the difference between men and women is that we do communicate differently and recognizing that what it's okay that we communicate differently. Just knowing that, in general, men want to retreat when they have feelings and women want to talk about things, but that's not always the way. I'm more of a retreater. My husband, it likes to talk, so it's not always that way. But he gives me the space to process my emotions, and then he knows when that time I need, and then he gets involved in the conversation. So sometimes people need time, and we have to give that allowance for that. And as far as giving affection is, we all need affection. And I think what I've seen is that what happens is sometimes women see affection as sexual and they pull away because they think, oh, a hug, that means they want sex, or they're massaging me, they want sex. And I mean, everybody needs touch. And so by rejecting someone's touch, it feels painful, especially to men or women. I mean, I've been there too, where I've been rejected from with my affection. And so that is a painful thing. And you have to look at, why are you rejecting that person? And so handling emotions, I mean, women have a lot of emotions, more than men. Usually. And so there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we're built that way. And so recognizing that men probably aren't going to be as emotional, and that's okay, and that women are going to be more emotional, and that's okay. It's just the difference in how we are built, and there's no wrongness in it. It's just understanding the difference.
I sincerely appreciate that because it goes back to actually getting to know ourselves better and also being in the position whereby one need to understand the perspective of the other side, which is men and the women. You made yourself as an example, you and your lovely husband. Instead of you to be doing the talking and that to be the man to be restricting, I think it was the opposite. So I think it goes back to understanding oneself and actually using our inner work to know the position we find ourselves and actually see how we can actually use that in connections with people and how we can use it to also explore ourselves more better. I think things will actually go on better from there as well. And I would also like to dive to the point of the area where many people, because this comes back to our inner work, to be honest, Mrs. Jenna. Many
Mm-hmm.
people they enter new relationships carrying wounds and expectation from previous ones. That means perhaps the previous relationship they've been into. So, what
Mm-hmm.
inner works do you think needs to happen before someone can genuinely receive healthy love instead of recreating familiar but harmful patterns, Mrs. Jenna?
That is a really brilliant question, really brilliant. um, but what I've found is that your self-love is the key to not repeating patterns. Because if you feel like you don't deserve to be treated well, which is what I used to feel, or you feel that it has to be hard, or you have to struggle with a man or a woman, it's just the way it's going to happen, because you keep repeating patterns because you don't think differently. And so in order to fix my issues, I worked with the Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian healing, and it's basically, the gist of it is, I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you. I read it in a book it's called Zero Limits by Joe Vitale, and it really changed my life, because I recognized that really everyone's a mirror and it's all reflections of us. And so anytime I have an issue with anyone, I'm saying to myself, I love you, please forgive me, I'm sorry, thank you. And by doing that repeatedly, you actually come to a place where you love yourself more and more and more. And so that really changed my life, and I suggest everyone does that to help further their healing.
No, I think we humans, we have a very strong emotion. And I think the emotion is we find it's very difficult to just let go of something like thank you, please, I'm sorry, all those things. I think it's something that, our emotions probably is not programmed to actually accept very well because we feel like we are weak or we are in one vulnerability or other as well. But if we
Mm-hmm.
look at it on the other side, most of the relationship or connection that has actually lasted very longer, these features are always there because there is no way one will actually be in some certain situation where there won't be some sign of misunderstanding at times. And this sense of please forgive me, I'm sorry, all those things plays a role. Those words, to be honest, Mrs. Gina, are very powerful. We can
Mm-hmm.
actually calm every single situation down in seconds. And that is
Yes.
why we actually need to actually learn all these attributes. And also, I would just like to drive to the point of the area or listeners who are in the position whereby they have experienced repeated disappointment in relationship. Let's just give it as an instance during the time when you said during your early days, you had more repeated patterns of relationship. So, and they are beginning to be in the position whereby they are losing hope. So, what do you think are the practical shifts that can help them build a partnership with more trust, ease, joy, and emotional safety, Mrs. Gina?
Well, one thing is, I believe what we put out, we get back. So if you're living in a place of there's no good men, there's no good women, relationships suck. You're not going to create a great relation. You're not going to have one come into your life because I believe that the universe or God is listening to what we're putting out there. And if we're putting out that it's not going to work, it's not, that's exactly what you're going to get. And so really working on the mindset and also being clear, what is it that works for you in a partner? Compatibility is a real thing. Not everybody works for everyone. And so if you're really clear who you are and what you need as in a partner, then you are more likely to. That's what I did. I wrote down all the things that I would like. And the universe has no budget, no limitation. So whatever you want, you can have, but you have to believe it to receive it. And so when I wrote this down, I knew in my soul, my gut, that I could have this man, and my husband is that man, and we all can have what we want. It's just we have to be clear and we have to be willing to work on our stuff. And in my book in chapter 10, and both sides, it's a dual book. One side being the man's perspective, the other side you flip it over, it's the woman's perspective. And in chapter 10 and both sides is all about healing your wounds, healing and what you can do to heal. And that if we don't heal, we're not going to do anything different. So we have to heal ourselves.
Honestly, I appreciate you for this wonderful insights. It shows that our mindset plays a very powerful role. Our mindsets take a lot of change, and also we must not make our mindset to be more distant to the point of emotions, because by the time we build our mindset to a certain stage, we do already know what we want. We shouldn't be in a position whereby we are more skeptic, or we're in a position whereby we're like, let me try this again. We're already falling into another trap again. So we have to actually stick to what we actually want with the mindset that we've actually built. We've known our attributes, we know what works for us, we know the kind of features we are looking for. And by the time we can actually divert ourselves to that surrounding, I think something should actually come out positively. So I do appreciate you for the wonderful insight. And also, Mrs. Gina, there is a question I normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our forefathers' time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Gina?
um Honestly, love is the answer. Love is the highest, one of the highest vibrations. And if we just live from love and kindness, I believe that the whole world will change. But most people are living in fear because fear is what we're programmed to live in. And if we get away from fear, I think that there's it's, what is the word I'm looking for? Is infinite possibilities out there for all of us if we live in love and gratitude. So just focus on love and gratitude and all the things that you are we there's so much to be grateful for. And if you live in that, you will change your life. And we need to get back to that.
I completely agree because I do understand how distant we are in our generation today, but we actually need to understand, as you said earlier, love is the highest vibration. And if love continues to keep us together, I think the world will continue to emerge positively because we
Mhm.
respect our values, we respect what works for us, we respect what does not. And despite the misunderstanding or argument that can come along the way, we'll still come back to actually settle our situation with love because love is the greatest vibration that can actually make things work, make things thrive, and also make the world a better place. Mrs. Jenna, I want to use
Yes.
this opportunity to thank you for the time and the opportunity for us to have this profound and insightful conversation today. Thank you so much, Mrs. Jenna.
And thank you so much. I appreciate you reaching out to me and allowing me to be part of your wonderful podcast.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Mrs. Jenna. Bye bye.
Bye bye.